it's like a suit and tie. I have a difficult time with suit and tie. I always have.
You don't wear suit and ties too much.
And people ask me occasionally what happened. I know this sounds strange, but chiropractor showed me this one day. When I button a shirt, it pulls on this side. It just pulls. All right, and I'm always doing this, and it just gets on my nerves. And I found out that from preaching over the years, like I'll hold a mic in this hand, but I'll move this hand. This sounds crazy. I built muscles in this side of my neck that's not on this side. And so I wear the real nice golf shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of business casual.
Oh, you're styling.
Hey, what can I say?
Manifest.
Hey, I'll tell you something funny, though. In the COG, when I started doing like their
That'd
camp
be the Church of God for all our
there.
Baptist friends
That's
out
right.
there who are listening.
But when I started doing their camp meetings, I started preaching their camp meetings in my 20s. I was 22, 23, 24 years old. And, normally I would wear a suit and tie, but sometimes it would just really hurt because what happens, that muscle would tighten. So I started wearing the golf shirts. And, it looks nice, in my opinion. But it was like, how come that boy don't have a suit and tie on? Because my dad was old school, and he used to go to Walmart in a suit and tie. One time he's out cutting the grass, he had a guy's got a tie on. I'm really serious. He was out there. I said, Dad. He said, well, I'm getting ready to go somewhere, brother. He never called me Perry. He called me brother, wouldn't he, Charlie?
Is that right?
He'd said, now, brother, his name's Perry. Brother.
Good morning to Charlie, by the way.
Yeah, Charlie sitting over here.
I got you some headphones over. You come over here and sit down,
on the
Charlie,
right, Charlie,
so we can see you.
Sit down on the right hand.
And, here's what I want to say. First, very, very excited to have both of you here.
Thank you very much.
And we had the funeral a couple weeks ago for an incredible gentleman who knew the Bible better than anybody I know, I guess. Next to you, Dr. Gauze.
Dr. Gauze, yeah.
And Jackie Johns got up at his funeral. You know Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
He got up, and this is Dr. Gauze's quote, but Jackie used it at his funeral. He said, I feel like a mosquito at a nudist colony. He said, I know what I need to do. I just don't know where to start. Now, Jackie said that at Dr. Gauze's funeral with all these Church of God officials sitting there.
I love it.
It was great.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel this morning with Perry Stone here. I did make some notes here of stuff I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah.
First of all, happy belated anniversary to you.
Thank you very much.
How many years you've been married?
30, almost 34, going on 34. Same woman.
Congratulations.
One woman. Some people say this is first lady, but it's really third or fourth lady. You understand this? I go to churches and they call themselves a bishop, and they're on number 3 looking for number 4. But I've been blessed to have a really great lady from Alabama. I met her in a 4-week revival, and I knew that was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And I knew I would marry her, and so we've been married, got 2 great kids. So it's been a great journey for us, really.
Of course, I've told you the story before when I was a freshman at Lee in '82, and me and my buddies came over to hear you preach at the 9-week revival, I think.
Oh, Daisy, yeah.
At Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really want to hear you preach. We just knew there were a lot of pretty girls going over there that we wanted to meet. And
that's how it was back in those days, though.
You're pretty great back then. You're pretty great now. And
well, Lord's helped us.
Yeah. What
Seriously.
about you've been on Trinity Broadcasting Network lately?
Yeah, they actually asked me to host about 8 or 10 times this year, but I've only been able to do just so many. I think one of the things that helps with that is our program, which is Manifest, which is on Church Channel TVN, maintains a very high rating, especially outside the United States. Normally Joel Osteen and I are the kind of, if you can say it, on the Nielsen ratings, kind of neck and neck. Joe usually beats me out because, he's just a nice guy. He doesn't preach anything controversial like me.
No, he doesn't.
No. And I know the family, and Joel just determined if you go to Joel's church, it is a powerful church. The music, they pray with people, but he will never show that on TV. He determined years ago when he took his dad's church what he wanted to represent, from a church service and what he wanted to be, and he has really stuck with that. But the church, if you go, you're talking about what on the part you don't see on TV, it's an amazing place, man. Amazing place.
He takes a bad rap, doesn't he, from some people?
Yeah, because I'm real good friends with Gary, his brother-in-law, and Gary said, the thing about Joel is he was never a minister. He was his dad's TV producer. He would be like Charlie, and then, you know, if something happened to me, and someone say, okay, Charlie, you go up, get up and preach, take over VOE.
Well, you might as well sell the station right now if that's going to happen. I'm just kidding, Charlie.
So the thing is that when he took the church, when Joel took the church, he had never really spoke before. And so he'll tell you, he said, I'm not a theologian. I didn't go to Bible school. I didn't, you know, I listened to my dad preach pretty much, but that was it. And so the amazing thing to me is he took it and it didn't drop. It doubled, it tripled. I think when Papa Osteen had it, there were 7,000 or 8,000 members. Joel's got like 40,000 people
Good
in now.
night.
Yeah. They're a sweet family. I know the whole family. They're a very sweet family.
Is his mom still living?
Far as I know, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, she was really miraculously healed of cancer many years ago. Has a great testimony of that.
Is Jan Crouch, is Paul Crouch still living?
No, Paul
He
passed away.
away.
Was it this year?
2 years.
Was it 2 years ago? It's been that. Oh,
2013.
it's
While
been
we
that-
were- while we
I know
were
we were in Israel. Yeah,
November
I was starting to say
2013.
last year, but maybe it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul. You know, that's another really. It's really an amazing thing when you think about one man had a vision to reach the world, and now they're in 249 nations. Like when we do our program, we have a program there on Friday night and a program on Monday night, and it goes into 249 nations. That's, and really, when we go on our Israel tour every year, and he'll tell you this is a verifiable. When we go, like the Mount of Beatitudes is probably one of the places where all the buses are from across the world, and we'll have people from Russia, especially Russia, that part of the world, southern Russian states or Russia, and they'll just start screaming, Brother Perry, if they can speak English. And you meet people from Africa, and it's like they all watch the program.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit larger as far as the scale of people being reached than sometimes you can imagine, you know, because you think only of the West a lot of times when you're doing something like that. So there's a lot of people being reached with the gospel through the social media right now, whether it's even Facebook, as simple as that sounds. People get on there with little brief videos or things like that. The big thing now, this is hilarious, is Periscope. Okay,
I haven't heard of
now
it.
I'm going to show you what I'm getting ready to do. I'm going to do this. You got to see this, everybody. If you're up there watching, it's an app. Now watch what happens. I'm going to say, if you've never seen this, this is the coolest thing you've seen in your lifetime. In your lifetime, are you ready?
Okay, Perry.
Watch.
Take
I'm going to
your word
say.
for
I'm
it.
going to
Okay,
say.
yeah.
Watch this. Well, no. Do we get a good signal here? I can't get a signal.
No,
Are you serious?
this is Whoop Radio.
Oh, that's why you call it whoop. Well, see,
Well-
it's not going to work here. That's sad because I was going to do this. But anyway, you put up here live on Whoop Radio,
Yeah.
and it will say broadcast. And when you hit the button, it goes, I have 8,000 people that follow me, and I can sit here live and talk to them, and they send me messages. It's the craziest thing. You see their picture, and it says, hey, how are you? I live in so-and-so, or they ask you a question. So you can sit here like this live and talk to people. Not when I say talk to them, you answer questions, or you say, hello, Bill from Kentucky. Bill's new, it's crazy.
Periscope.
And all you need is a good internet signal, which it says connection too poor.
This is Whoop.
What is it, though? Because you should be able to.
We
pick
don't
up-
know.
Is it because the electronics, maybe?
Because we don't have any money, Perry.
Well,
Hey,
somebody needs to
you can
send
appreciate this,
help.
Mark.
Could
It's
you
called-
help us raise some money while you're here this morning?
Well, come on, y'all help him out.
Hey, it's called
Maybe
Periscope,
he's-
but he uses it so much we call it Periscope.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't come up with it. I think
That brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
I keep up with you, and
Okay.
I on Facebook, and in other places, YouTube, and all.
Yeah.
But when you go to like a huge church to preach, I guess it's before you do your sermon,
Right.
you'll do a little Facebook video.
A lot of times,
And
right.
for all our Facebook, is it Charlie that's doing the video? And that's my first question.
No, usually Robbie, who's one of our
Okay.
others, him and they grew up together pretty much.
So
But
how many people, Charlie, does that reach? When Perry does the Facebook video and throws it out there for all his...
Well,
How many
we got
people?
260,000.
we have 260,000, but
Okay.
one thing interesting, now that doesn't mean that many people
Oh,
watch,
yeah.
because the video is a little different on phones and things. Some people watch it, some don't. We'll go into the tens of thousands normally, but what's interesting is when I do an alert, and I'll say repost this, and you've seen the alerts.
Oh,
some
yeah.
of it's pretty heavy stuff, to
We're
be
going to
honest
talk
with you.
about some of that today.
Okay. We've reached as many as 4.4 million just with that alert. And that they tell me on Facebook that's astronomical numbers, that, you have to be either, somebody super well known that the world knows, or a leader like that to have those numbers. And I was kind of blew me away when we saw it. So that kind of gives you the potential of the social media, just with information, what they call the information highway.
Well, what
So it's
I'd like
pretty
to ask
remarkable.
you to do up here, I don't mean to talk over you. I'm
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
man of God and everything that you are.
Talk over me.
Would
That's
you
fine.
let Charlie do a video of you here in Whoop Radio, and then you put that on Facebook? And well, you could put alert before it if you wanted to. Everybody listen to Mark in the Morning Show. And the other thing I want to ask you before we get into the serious stuff
Yeah.
here is, what was that they called it with the eclipse and all? Was it the red moon or
Well, they
What's it-
rabbinically they call it a blood moon.
Blood moon, that's it, yeah.
It's a reddish orange
Does
color.
the blood moon, Bishop and man of God, does that have anything to do with the possibility of the Cubs winning the World Series this year? Well, I'm just being serious, Perry. I need to know this.
You know what? I
As
didn't.
a
I didn't.
lifelong Cub fan.
I didn't get that revelation. It didn't come to me.
Doggone
man.
it.
I've looked. It wasn't there.
10 minutes after the hour of 7, Reverend Perry Stone in the studio here with us this morning. Also his armor bearer,
Oh yes.
Charlie. How long's Charlie been with you?
26 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got him,
about
got him
that?
when he was a boy in the crib.
Yeah, I worked for him for 26 years. I've known him over 30.
Yeah.
So,
Charlie used to come to the meetings where we would be, he would drive. He was so hungry for the Lord that he would just drive to meetings. Sometimes he would bring Robbie. Robbie was a good friend. Robbie's on staff now. And some of the guys from the Adamsville church. And man, we've had we had a prayer meeting one time. This was amazing. And we were at a house in Adamsville, Alabama, and we prayed till 3:30 in the morning. And we had a word came forth. I mean, we got so into the spirit of prayer that a word came forth and it said, now what's getting ready to happen? This is the Lord telling us this, that nations are going to collapse overnight in the communist area, that there would be leaders that would die. One morning you'd go to bed and they'd be a leader, the next morning they'd be dead. And I mean, right after that, Ceausescu got shot. Right after that, all the communist nations start falling. So we had things like that would happen, you know, when we'd pray together and get together and things. But God linked Charlie's heart with us when he was just probably, 18, 19? No, about 19, wasn't it? And and then we were in a service in Anniston, Alabama, and I called 7 men out, and the Lord gave me a word. And I looked at him and I said, now you're going to work for me one day. And I just went by, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't plan this. And then the guy working with me stepped down to take another job, and I called him. He was working at a factory. And I said, are you ready to come to work? And he said, well, let me see. And he came up for a weekend. Then the rest is history.
What about
So it's
that?
pretty neat. It's a pretty neat story that we've got.
When are you going to retire so I can take your place? By the way, I think I've earned favor enough with you, Perry. I don't want to go through Charlie anymore when we line you up.
There
on
you
this.
go.
I'd just like to get you directly. And no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We're going to take a break here and play a song. But before we do,
Okay.
you or Charlie won. What's going on at Perry's place
Oh,
this,
yeah.
this
Main-
month?
the main
we'll
event.
talk about this several times.
Yeah, let me just mention for the folks in the community, we have what is our main event. We've got Tony Stewart, Chris Hill. Chris Hill is my wife's favorite pastor in the world. Now, I know we go to church here in town, but she is just, Chris Hill's an African-American guy that preaches like T.D. Jakes. And she tries to, and Jensen Franklin, she loves Jensen. Of course, Jensen's not coming anyway, but we got, and Mark Casto, and
Michael
also
Wood.
Michael Wood. Michael
Tony
Wood will preach what day?
Wednesday morning.
Now, I want everybody to
And
listen
this
to
is
me.
next week.
This
so
is next
everybody
week.
knows
We're
this
going
is
to
next
the 6th to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and
to the
10th.
10th.
Michael Wood preached the greatest message, one of the top 2 greatest messages I heard in my life. It transformed me completely. And I asked him to come here and preach that message. And Wednesday morning, everybody needs to go to OCI in Cleveland Wednesday morning. Just take off work. Because this is the most, he did a thing on hope. I thought, okay, this is going to be boring. I mean, I'm honest with you, hope. Okay. Oh my. I heard stuff I never heard in my life. But anyway, we're going to have Tuesday night through Saturday night. We're going to have, we start at 7, and then the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday at 6:45, and Saturday at 6. 9:30 in the morning, Wednesday through Saturday morning. And we've got campus choir coming from Lee. We've got Aaron and Amanda Crabb coming, Larry and Gina Bean coming. We have a man who is he's a war veteran, and he's the only one of the few men in America that served in the war with America and Israel. He fought for Israel. And he's actually is from Florida. He's a congressman. He's a military guy. He's going to be there with us Friday. and I want the veterans to come out and hear this guy. He won't be doing the message. I'll be preaching, but we're going to give him about 15, 20 minutes to give his testimony. It's incredible. He understands explosives and nuclear things and things like that. But the cool thing is, and by next week we're looking at the weather. Looks like it's going to be good. My wife has her fall festival on Friday and Saturday. We'll start about 12 noon and go through about 5. We've got gospel singing one day, preacher mania one day. I'm going to sign books under the big tent one day for everybody that has one of our books. We've got all kinds of food vendors. It's really a lot of fun. People get out there and hang out. It's just a lot of fun.
This next week.
This is next week.
At
And
OCI.
Friday and Saturday will be the fall festival. Got a craft show tent. Just a lot of different things going on. It's like I said, she's making. When you grew up, did the women make the fried pies?
Yes.
And they're deep fried.
Yes.
Not this stuff you buy in a store.
No.
Okay. My wife is and on Friday and Saturday, we'll be making 4 kinds of the old time
Fried apple.
I felt something right there.
Whoa.
Fried apple pies, man. I'm telling you something. Hey,
Whoa.
I was addicted to
I
those as a
guarantee you
kid.
that you just made history because you're the first person that's ever felt the anointing here in this radio station.
Talking
Just
about
kidding.
fried pies.
Peach? Is she going to make peach?
She's going to make apple, pecan, coconut cream, and
Oh my goodness.
there's one. Look, can I tell you this? I'm a diabetic. Okay,
I am too.
It's a fact. But I ate 2 last year. I shouldn't have done it, but I did.
You take
They're-
insulin, or are you on pill?
just the pill.
Yeah, that's
But let me say that she is so good at this. When this is the old kind of deep fry. It's worth going to OCI buying a pie. Let me just say that. Okay, Friday and Saturday, it's worth it. Charlie, am I telling the truth? Is this not?
I
is it
believe
not
you.
Crazy.
Forget the messages, the preaching.
Yeah, the preaching's good, but
Right.
the pies are worth coming to. Then she does a thing, and I don't know if she's going to do this there because it may be an overboard. She has a pot pie recipe that nobody else has. Now, she does stuff. I'm not going to tell her secrets. We've had people call begging her for her recipe, and she will not give it out. I said, this is a family. We're going to get this to the highest bidder when my daughter goes to college, okay? Hey, now he'll verify. They stand in line 200 and 300
Good.
deep, and wait up to an hour to get one of her pies. Honest,
night.
listen, honest
There's
to
a
goodness.
lot of work that goes into
Oh,
that, too.
but honest to goodness,
truth.
it is off the chain what she does. And I'm not going to give her secrets. She's 2 secrets that she does that I don't know if anybody else does with the pie. But when she does them, look, you be slapping mama, daddy, the dog, the cat, and everybody else when you eat one of those things. So anyway, that's the 6th through the 10th of this coming week, Tuesday through Saturday. And everybody's invited. You don't have to register. There's no fee to attend. I believe we've got plenty of seating for everybody. So
That's
everybody
an
included.
OCI at 410 Urbane Road.
Yeah, that's the new.
Down past
People
the
have
lot.
heard probably of the new building that's built in
Yeah.
town off Urbane Road. So that's where it's at. Yeah.
That's next week at OCI. We're going to talk a lot more about that. Perry Stone is our guest this morning. Reverend Perry Stone, incredible gentleman. We're very lucky, and I mean that with all my heart, to have him here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and everything he's done, and the people the mayor came in one time, talked about all the tourists that come in, and the motels stay full, and the restaurants stay full, and it's just great for our town. It's good to have him here. I want to talk about the Pope's visit.
Okay.
I want to talk about Putin. He's bombing Syria now. I guess you know
That's
that.
a serious deal, by the way.
We're going to talk about
Yeah.
that when we come back.
Serious deal.
Next week at OCI, he mentioned Gina Bean. Here's Gina right here. She is absolutely incredible.
Oh, an unbelievable singer.
I'll be right back, and then we'll talk more about fried apple pies.
I remember the blessed day you found me. I was lost in a world so deep in sin. But then Jesus rescued me and gave me the victory, loosing every shackle holding me. And now I'm living life more abundantly. There is a joy unspeakable down in my soul, and it reaches to the deepest part of me. It fills my heart with gladness, sets my spirit free when I think of what the Lord has done for me. When I think of what the Lord has done for me.
minutes after the hour of 7. That's Gina Bean, Joy Unspeakable. She's going to be at OCI next week. What day will she be there, Perry?
They're going to come in Tuesday night and do the morning, night and morning up through about Friday.
What are they doing now?
Well, she was my secretary 15 years and one of the greatest people I've ever been around. In 15 years, she never said anything negative about anybody. And that's the truth.
What about that?
Wonderful people. But her and Larry went to Mississippi to, is it her dad's church, right? Her father's church. And he will retire, I think, probably next year. So the plan is for them to take the church. And they adopted a beautiful baby from the Women of Hope, one of the ladies at the Women of Hope. And this child is just, she's like a China doll. You ever, the expression is just like a doll that you see in a store.
I did not know that. Congratulations to them.
Yeah. They couldn't have children, so God arranged an adoption for her. It's really, really a neat story.
What about that?
But we miss them. They're two great people, man. Two great people.
I cannot play the piano like Larry, or I would apply for that job.
Yeah.
I can't sing like Gina either. But
that's so much for that.
Perry Stone in the studio with us this morning. Before we get to Putin and Syria and all that, because that's some serious business, the Pope. Mm-hmm. Someone told me yesterday to ask you that they had heard you had an invitation to go meet the Pope. Is that correct?
No, I had an invitation to go meet one of the presidential candidates.
Oh, okay.
One of the main front runner. And
is this Donald Trump?
I shouldn't say.
Well, I did, because I want to ask you about that.
Well, since it's done, I can say. But they called me to go to Trump Towers to meet him personally. And I know that's like anytime you have someone of those levels, whether it be Ben Carson or Marco Rubio, whatever, that's a very honorable thing. They want to hear what you have to say and prayer and that kind of thing. But one, my schedule didn't permit it, but two, I'm a little bit cautious of just trying to stay clear of being totally connected to one person. Although there is someone that I highly admire, and he is a friend. He's in the top tier, the top four, let's say, and he's a friend, and he, I really would love him to come. We're having an Awaken America rally in January, and I'd like for this particular man to come only because he's a very strong Christian, and I really like him personally. Now, not to come as an endorsement. But
Tell us who it is.
Marco Rubio.
I thought that too. You mentioned him last time.
Yeah, and Marco is really a very knowledgeable believe. I mean, some people say they're believers, and you're just like, okay, yeah. After this election, but he goes to a huge church, Hispanic church down in his area, and his wife is a absolute amazing woman, amazing lady. But again, I don't endorse. I don't publicly endorse or do things for people like that. And one of the reasons I chose not to go up there was basically because of staying neutral, because I have a huge African American audience, I have a huge Hispanic audience, and so if I start connecting, then you can disconnect from people. Politics, my granddad told me years ago, my granddad was what they called, okay, you have to figure this out, he was a coal mining yellow dog Democrat. And that simply means that you could not pay him, nor could you hit him in the head to vote any other way. Okay,
correct. Because
he was in the Union. And let me just say something. This is a lesson for people. The word redneck was a West Virginia term that when the unions tried to come into West Virginia to unionize the coal mines, because man, back in that day, the coal miners were just a bit, if they got hurt, they fired them. If they had got sick, they fired them. And so the unions came in to protect them. And so to the West Virginia miners, now we're going back years ago now, the Republican Party resisted the unions. So they saw the Republicans as a bunch of rich guys who were for the rich. Now we're talking 20s now, 30s that time. And so anybody that wanted the union wore a red bandana, and they were called rednecks. And that's where the term redneck, that's where actually the term redneck came from. And so because of him coming through that era, I think he finally voted for Reagan, which we thought the Lord was about to come at any moment now. When he did that, it was so funny. What? Granddad did what? But
what you were invited to go to Trump Tower for, I'm just going to ask you this, because was this the little, well, not the little thing, but where the ministers stood around?
Right, yeah.
I didn't like that. I'm just pouring my heart out to you.
Yeah.
It was staged. It was for Facebook and media and all this stuff. And I didn't like it.
Well, one of the things too is when something of that nature happens, where there is a meeting like that, and the media gets a hold of it, then they go and attack the ministers. And next thing you know, the ministers are having to defend themselves and the why and what did you mean by that? And you said this to him, and then it just creates, if I can say it, for a minister, it can create a very negative. I call it the media circus.
Yeah.
So look, I got too much going on to.
Yeah, you do.
I mean,
Good for you.
I got too much to deal with in the spirit realm than to try to connect to different people. Although I do have personal preferences in people that I know. In fact, I want to just say this: a lot of the individuals running on let's say the Republican side, because there's only one right now, basically Hillary on the other side, so you can't say the individuals on the other side, at least at this point. And I heard Al Gore that said he may step in. And I will tell you something, if he did, he would probably get the nomination from her right now.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. But
How about Joe Biden?
Well, Joe's a hoot, because he makes more bloopers than any human being that's ever been in politics. He said, we got to have jobs, that 3-letter word, Jobs. It's like, let's see, 1, 2, 3. It's 4 letters. But anyway, I think what's happening with her email thing, look, there's some stuff in that email she don't want out. It's personal stuff, and I am not going to go. I'm not going there. Please, I'm not going there. But I think that could hurt, and if it does hurt, if it starts really hurting the numbers, they will send that the party will put somebody in. That's how they're going to do it, and so they're going to find out who probably has the biggest ratings among their group, their party, and they will put somebody else to run against her.
I'm a Marco Rubio fan also.
Marco is very intellectual. You can't entrap him, and he really thinks things through when he says something. And Trump was at a conference, and it was a lot of Christian people, and he said that clown Marco Rubio, and people started booing him. The only thing, and I'll say this as my opinion, this is not a preacher talking, this is a private opinion. The one thing that if Trump would not be so offended at you can't be president and then say that Congressman George is an idiot. I mean, I can see him doing that, and you have to, as a leader, get some tough skin and not. If he'd stick with just substance, he'd be okay. But as long as he's attacking people constantly, the media, just attack, and you got to remember, and you know this. Here's a man who is one of the top businessmen really in America. He's the boss. He's used to telling people what to do, and he's used to telling people off. He's a businessman. And businessmen have a tendency, if they got a lot of money, of being that way. That's just the character of the beast, so to speak. But I don't think he's quite trying to transition into the business personality to what they call the kind of the political personality. And I think people are trying to help him, but he seems to me to be the kind of guy that says, "Come here, give you some advice." No, I don't want him doing it. You idiot,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this in a negative, because I know he's got a lot of fans here in town. So this is not a negative. This is just an observation that if he cooled a little bit and not come across like a bully and not retaliate, say, here's what I would say. That's their opinion, and opinions are like noses. Everybody's got one, okay? So that's their opinion. And go on. I know in ministry, even in our ministry, especially when you're in a the arena of media, you always have your critics. They didn't like what you said. They didn't like how you look. Or they just don't like you, period. And I do not spend any time taking a letter from a critic and answering it, because my friends don't need an explanation, and my enemies won't accept an explanation. So why waste time doing it? So I've told people years ago, I have a mentoring class in May for ministers, and I tell these guys, I said, look, if you're going to get easily offended, do not enter the ministry. Just don't do it. If you're one of those that's just going to cry like a baby and retaliate and use the pulpit as a bully pulpit to go after people that may have said something, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have an opportunity probably every day to have an offense, and you just got to roll it off your back, But anyway, the reason I did not go is not that I'm negative toward the person or against the person. It's just for being in ministry. I want to be perceived as a minister, and not and I'm not on this man's level, by the way, but not like a Jerry Falwell who got involved with more majority politics, getting people out. And I do encourage people to vote. I encourage them to vote as close to Bible in their conscience as they can, and that's about as far as it goes with me, as far as really heavily getting involved. I mean, I've had guys. Now this is real. I say it's confidential. I guess it's not since we're on radio. But I've had some of the guys call me running and say, can we be on your program? Or can you get us on TBN? Now, had they not announced that they were running? In fact, a couple of these guys, I invited them. I said, hey, you're a spokesman, you're into politics, you know what's happening in the country. And I invited them on, and they couldn't work their schedule out. But now a lot of them want to be on with me, and I can't do it because once they announce they're running, it puts it in a whole different level on Christian television, and also if it's a 501c3. Then if you have one on, you're going to have 16 want to come on,
Yeah.
And then the audience, there again, it divides an audience up pretty severe if you, like when we go on TBN, for example, and this is no big deal. This is just how they say. They said they'll give you some guidelines. Number one, if you have a conference, don't date it. And one of the things they say is you don't talk. You can mention politics. You can mention the direction the country's going, but don't mention Obama by name. Do not mention anybody's name. And so they have guidelines for that. And so it's all part of the process of just saying we have to maintain an image of gospel only. We're preaching the word. We're maybe preaching prophecy, but we're preaching the gospel. Now, when people come to our conferences, and even at the conference we're going to have October 6th to the 10th at OCI, Omega Center International on Urbane Road, and of course folks are invited to that.
Where there will be fried apple pies, by the way.
Oh, yeah, and all kinds of other stuff too. Great stuff. But I'm going to be doing two prophetic messages. One is based on a question my wife asked me. My wife is the only person I've met in my lifetime in ministry that asked me two questions that stumped me. Because I think I know enough about the Bible that I can at least give an answer,
right.
Or it sounds like an answer, And she said something to me because I was working on the return of the Lord. Would it be on a festival day? And she asked me a question, and I never thought of it. And it inspired me on a message that is going to be one of the greatest messages the Holy Spirit's given me this year. It's pretty cool. And then we're going to preach on the return of the ancient spirits, the 7 spirits of empires that are now coming back, actual spirits, fallen beings that are coming back in the world, being released, and how it's affecting us and what we can do about it. So there's going to be some pretty neat stuff going on there. But I don't want to spend all my time on the political thing, but that's kind of what's happened. But it is honorable when men who, some of these guys, it's very possible one of these guys will be president.
Right.
And it's honorable when now I have been told that if different ones make it, I will be invited to the White House, and I will also be invited to meet with them and also to the inauguration ball. So my wife told me, she says, okay, if that really happens, I need to get you to go somewhere and take a lesson on how to eat at a proper dinner.
Well, yeah, and would you wear a suit and tie?
Oh, I'd have to.
Or a
probably
tuxedo. Tuxedo.
But in other words, she says, you have a fork and this, and you got a spoon and this, and this is what if I go to a formal dinner,
don't worry
I just
about it.
grab anything. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
Don't wear socks
I'm the guy,
either.
I'm the guy from West Virginia.
Right.
We're used to eating ribs with our hands. We don't use a knife and fork for anything. Well, we do, but I mean, but anyway, she was laughing at me about that and about the possibility of that. But anyway, that's
What would you think about and then the reason I bring this up, it was on Fox News this morning about a Trump Rubio ticket.
That would probably be pretty awesome. And I'll be honest with you, because Rubio would be the balance.
Right.
But the thing is, you can't, if Trump starts calling him names and gets in the fight, all the Democrats will do is play back what he said. Do you want this team? They can't get along. Trump can't get along with anybody, much less his vice president. I mean, it would be, you know what I'm saying? They would create kind of like a circus from it. But, I would not mind at all seeing a Carson Rubio ticket. Ben Carson, Ben Carson, he's very humble and he's very articulate. I like the way, he thinks before he thinks, he says a lot of good things. But anyway, I think there's a possibility of having some, a very interesting, election. I think, one thing that surprises me, because I knew President Bush, is that Jeb, the system assumed that Jeb would be the front runner from the beginning. And Jeb's numbers right now are so low, he's not going to, it doesn't look like he's even going to take Florida. Rubio may take Florida in the primary. And, you have Hillary on one end, and she's the Clinton dynasty, as they call it. And you have Jeb, who's the Bush dynasty. And I almost think, I'm just giving you my opinion of what I see in traveling. It's like people are tired of the dynasties.
Right.
And they're saying, look, we've had this, we've had a Clinton, we've had a Bush. Let's just go different this time. And if you've noticed, Trump's a business man. Is it what's her name? Flortina. I can't. I ever.
Fiorina.
Fiorina. I never.
I
can
like
get her
her
name.
too.
Yeah, she's a very nice lady, but she's a business lady, and I think, and Ben Carson is a surgeon. So this is interesting that you have, and I've often said, I said, look, we keep electing lawyers and we keep electing politicians. Nothing wrong with lawyers or politicians, but we keep electing them and we just don't go anywhere. So maybe we need business people who know common people and know how America works and what's working and what's not. And maybe that's what we need, to be up there. But it's going to be an interesting year. My wife and I hate election years, though, because it causes so much strife in the atmosphere, so much strife among the American people, But
When these guys call you and ask you to be on your show,
yeah.
and you're not
See,
able to send them to Whoop.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
I'll interview them, tell
Okay.
them
I
huge
really will.
radio station.
I may be able to get you some interviews with some of the guys.
I have a
seriously.
favor to ask you.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I've never asked you for a favor.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Okay. Marco Rubio.
Right.
I really like him a lot.
Yeah.
And last time you were here, you mentioned Charlie's a witness,
Yeah.
that you might be able to get him to call in sometime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Next Thursday, beginning at 6 a.m.
It's good of it.
hang on. Next Thursday at 6 a.m. through next Friday at 12 noon, I'm going to be on this radio station live 30 hours straight, nonstop.
What?
Raising money for Alzheimer's. My mom passed away of Alzheimer's 5 years ago. This is our third year, and we raised over 15 or 20,000 the last 2 years. I'm going for $30,000 this year for Alzheimer's. If Marco Rubio could call, he can call in at midnight hour. That would be fine.
Yeah. I know this. I had access to him directly.
You're not going to do it for me.
Well, let me
you?
say this. I did have access.
Could I have an apple pie, maybe?
Yeah. No, but I had direct access to him, and then they changed all their people.
Oh,
so it's a
okay.
little bit more difficult trying to get through now. I mean, it's a little bit.
Kind of like me trying to get to you. I have to go to
They actually
Charlie.
were going to give me his number, his cell phone number, and I should have taken it when I had
you
the
should have.
opportunity. But I try to stay neutral.
23 minutes before the hour, before we take a break, and then when we come back, I want to talk about Putin, Syria, what's going
Sure.
on over there, some serious stuff.
Sure, yes.
Tell us once again next week at OCI.
Okay, October the 6th, which is Tuesday night, through Saturday the 10th. At night, I'll be preaching every night at our main event conference. And Wednesday morning through Saturday morning, Michael Wood, Chris Hill, Mark Casto, Tony Stewart are going to be preaching. And we've got Gina Bing and Larry Bing. We've got Campus Choir. We've got the Crabs, Amanda Crab and Aaron Crab coming. We've got just all kinds of things planned. We have a fall festival on Friday and Saturday. It'll be at our ranch, which is right off. It's actually on the OCI property. And if you want to know where OCI is, it's located behind the YMCA where the ball fields are. If you go past the ball fields, you're going to run into our building. You can't miss it.
Huge.
It's a beautiful building.
It is.
Holds thousands of people. And the miracle there is that whole building is paid for. Everything
That's
in
incredible.
it. Oh yeah, we had a man, and I don't want to say too much about this. I may have gave it away last time, but we had a man who owns an NFL team. His wife and I were good friends, and she passed away. And she told her husband, "Give my money away to charity." And she had me marked as part of that. And if it hadn't been for them, we'd still owe a big debt.
Wow.
And so we're thankful that they did that. And they just sent another check for my youth camp. They sent a $3 million check for my youth camp.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so we're going to build a youth camp out there, but I need about $5 more million before I really get in to start.
That's where we sell.
We're praying for a Cleveland millionaire now.
That's where we'll be selling fried apple pies to come up with the rest. Reverend Perry Stone in the studio. We got about 20 more minutes. When we come back, I want to talk about Putin and Syria and what all's going on over there, and hear some serious stuff from Perry. We'll be right back.
Well, there are people never receiving anything from God at all. Oh, they are shaken from their believing. When they don't see results, they quickly fall. But don't you waver, keep on a-living, in the way God wants you to. Don't get discouraged, keep on a-giving, soon it will
pressed down, shaken together, running over.
Soon it's gonna come back home on every way.
Keep on working, seeking the kingdom, instead of working for your needs. Keep on sharing the love of Jesus. You know growing comes from planting seeds.
Keep on casting your bread upon the water. Soon it's gonna come back home on every way. Keep on casting your bread upon the water. Soon it's gonna come back home on every way.
Good measure pressed down, shaken together, running over.
Soon it's gonna come back home on every way. Keep on casting your bread upon the water. Soon it's gonna come back home on every way. Keep on casting.
19 minutes before the hour of 8 o'clock. It's Mark in the Morning here on Whoop Radio, 99.9 FM on your dial. We're all over the world on WOOPFM.com. Reverend Perry Stone is my guest this morning. And Mr. Charlie over here, who's remained quiet. Now, that little video you took on your phone, what are you going to do with that?
Show it to the world.
You'll need to talk to my attorneys. I have rights that
His face is
I have-
protected by attorneys.
I have royalties. That's it.
That's it, royalties,
Hey, Perry,
yeah.
tell everybody about your new book.
Oh
will you?
yeah. This is pretty cool. I'll show the folks on the internet here. This is probably, and and you know, when you talk about your book, and I have to tell you what other people are saying and not what I think, but it's called Chronicles of the Sacred Mountain, and the subtitle is How a Mountain of Fire and a Rebellious Cherub Altered History in Heaven and Earth. I have a theory, and I did run this by 2 scholars before I put it in the book because it is so out there compared to what we've heard taught about how Lucifer in the beginning of time was connected to the building of the New Jerusalem. And you have to go to the stones on the breastplate in Ezekiel 28, then the stones of the New Jerusalem, etc. And you got to do some comparison. And it says he walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Every stone was his covering. He was lifted up because of pride. And it's like a code that was broken, you know, when we saw this. Anyway, you have to read this before it even makes sense. Visions of God, heavens, are there 3 levels or 7? Sapphire is God's favorite gemstone. Sons of God and morning stars. There's 2 types of angels, sons of God and morning stars, and one is Michael the archangel is over one, and Lucifer was over the other. And he pulled that third from his group in the Bible. 2 powerful angels that were expelled with Satan. Preborn infants in heaven. If a woman has had a miscarriage, she needs to read this. It's incredible. How old will we look in heaven? What food will we eat in heaven? What will we remember in heaven? What language is spoken in heaven? What those in heaven know about those on earth? Assignments in heaven and earth, and access to the kingdom. And also 5 really major questions. So what they can do, they can go to perrystone.org and order this, perrystone.org, or if you live in Cleveland, go by the Voice of Evangelism offices, walk in the lobby, and tell them I want Perry's Sacred Mountain book. I think the price they got on the back is $20, and but it took a while to write it, and it probably has the greatest. You know, it's amazing when you read the Bible and you see things and you start putting it with other verses and other scripture, how you get a picture that maybe previously you didn't know, and so it's a lot of putting the word together and different things, but it's all completely Bible based. It's all scripture based, and we've had people that have read a lot of our books, and they've come back to me and they said, "This one, when I started reading, I couldn't put it down. This is your best book you've ever written." In fact, it's become so popular recently that they'll stand 7 to 8 deep at tables to get the book. I mean, it's got that much revelation and insight into it. So.
How many partners does Perry Stone Ministries have?
Charlie might be able to answer that. How many do you think we got?
Somewhere around 10,000, I would say.
Yeah, probably about 10,000, I would say. But we also have a tape club. We've got Partner Strike Force, and so we've got different levels.
Average age range of the partners.
50. About
Have you
50.
ever
Uh-huh.
written a book? I'm getting somewhere here.
Go ahead. I know
Have you ever written a book? You know, I'm in the funeral business. Been
Yeah.
doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
Seriously, about
Death.
a guide toward funeral arrangements, final expenses, planning your funeral. Death.
You know what? I
anything
haven't, but I have a lot of questions on cremation. And honestly, and I know some people would differ with me on this, but if a person is burnt to death in a fire, they still have a resurrection.
Amen.
It doesn't, because so in other words, the body is the dust. It's going to end up going to dust to where it scatters. And the resurrection is a mystery. When Paul says it's a mystery, you better know it's a mystery, because he said it's a mystery. And really, I prefer, now this is me personally, if I'm going to pass and I still got my body, they make me look real good, make me look like the best corpse in town, and put me in there and let me have a
This
funeral.
part of the show brought to you by Grissom Funeral Home in Cleveland, Tennessee.
And but when families, and there are families that maybe can't afford that, or they choose not to.
Correct.
It's two ways. There's nothing I can find in the Bible, and I know the Jewish people would believe different because they want the body buried intact, etc. But really and truly, you can't find where anything against cremation. And if people, one of my best partners did not have the money to be buried, and they had to cremate her, and it's sad, but at the same time, I understood the family situation.
Yeah.
And so my point is, as far as the resurrection, if the soul and spirit goes out of the body anyway, you can't burn it, you can't destroy a soul and spirit. That's why people go into hell. It's eternal. Or they go to heaven, it's eternal. And the body goes totally back to dust anyway. And cremation is the dust of the body.
Amen.
That's the bones and the dust of the body is what it is.
Yep.
We had a situation, I tell you this real quick, and I know we got to get on for some prophetic stuff, but we had a lady that had two sons die, and they cremated both of them because one was a terrible accident and so on. So she asked me, she said, "Can I take my sons to Israel?" I said, "Sure." And I'm thinking she's thinking, take them on the trip.
Going to spread their ashes over.
Really? I'm serious. She took, didn't she, a backpack. And at the Garden Tomb in Israel, nobody knew where we did this, and it, but it was, no, it was really.
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
No. She
Nothing illegal
She
about
went to she went to the Garden Tomb in Israel, and she asked us to place it. And there was a tree that was split into two parts. And she said, "This represents my boys, ma'am." But I'm telling you, I saw a mama grieve, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
She actually dipped her hand in the ashes and put it on her face. She was so grieved about her son's death. But anyway, we put the ashes there, like people sprinkle them on the sea. They do that all the time.
I'm going to be cremated,
Are you really?
and I want my ashes spread at Wrigley Field up in Chicago.
Are you really? Are you serious?
No, I'm kidding.
I didn't think you
I'm
were.
making that up.
I thought you were going to say OCI or something, or the ranch, or the, where they cook the pies or something. That's what I thought you were
I
going to say.
really appreciate your comments about the whole cremation, because you're exactly right. And the number one reason that people choose for cremation mainly is economic
reasons.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And there's nothing wrong
I wouldn't
with
want
it.
people. I think here's another thing: work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. If people have a conviction another way, stick with your conviction.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, and I this question came to me from friends that were choosing, and I said, resurrection wise, what a person can die in a plane crash, they can die in a building and be burnt. It does not hurt the resurrection of the dead, and the soul and spirit departs the body anyway. So, and then again, some people would disagree. I'll probably get a letter in the mail this morning or something.
That'll be fine. We talked earlier. We don't care about those letters.
Yeah, no.
Thick skin.
That's
I was going to mention one other thing to you about that. You
Yeah.
said if you take things serious and it bothers you, then you don't need to be in. My dad was a Church of God pastor for 40 years. He took a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and he had thick skin. The problem is, though, when you mess with my dad, I'm coming after you. My dad wouldn't come after you, but that's my dad.
Yeah.
And anyhow,
We were the same
that's
way
another
with our
show.
dad. Yeah, we were the same way with our dad. Very protective of him.
Yeah, I know.
Because
how
we
much
knew
you
him.
loved
Because
your
we
dad.
knew him, man.
Yeah,
We knew how he lived. We knew his walk.
yeah.
Mowed
the grass in his tie.
Listen, a woman jumped up in a meeting one time and called him a name and left and lost her voice the next day for 6 months.
Wow.
And my dad had to pray for her, called her out of the church service, laid hands on her, and she got her voice back the next day.
Reverend
Yeah.
Perry Stone in the studio
Happened.
with us. And it's your show this morning, and I'm just glad to have you here. But I want to I know a lot of people are listening to hear the prophetic word
Yeah.
about what's going on in Syria and
Yeah,
Putin
yeah.
and everything. So take it away.
Well, one thing that's happening right now is ISIS was taking over Syria. ISIS is Sunni Muslim. ISIS is the gap. In other words, the government of Iraq was Shia. Shias are connected to the Persians or the Iranians. When the Shia government took over, we pulled our troops out. Of course, the Shia government took over Iraq. They cut off all the aid and funding to the Sunni Muslims in the north. So the ISIS actually began as a protest against the government, and then they start arming themselves with the old equipment America left there, which is still good equipment. And then they became a force to be reckoned with. What they do is they go into a town and they kill everybody, the men who are not following them. So then people begin to submit to them because, when you walk outside your house and you got 50 heads hanging on a post that people have been beheaded, that's the fear tactic. Okay? Now, what happened is Obama should have gone in there and tried to annihilate. He called them a JV team publicly.
Yeah.
And he should have gone in there and dealt with that because of what they were doing. However, he did not do that. Now, Assad in Syria, ISIS wants to go in and take over Syria as their base. Assad in Syria is fighting rebels who want him out in the government because the rebels is who the United States is supporting. Israel, this is really behind the scenes information, but Israel prefers Assad in there because they know Assad is never going to attack Israel because Israel will annihilate him. And they know that Assad is safer for them. However, they don't like his atrocities of what he's doing. They hate that because it's like a little Holocaust going on. Mm-hmm. They've killed 250,000 people. That's why everybody's trying to get out of Syria. The families are. Now, what happened is Putin has gone in there with the intent of taking care of ISIS, but what he's doing, he's bombing the rebels.
Right.
The United States can do nothing about this. If we try to intervene, we're going to have a war with Russia in Syria. And so I think it's going to be a lot of talk back and forth, a lot of we are against this. We want to give a firm, talk, in the highest terms, we're against this. And that's what you get with this administration. But the other thing, so I'm watching that. I think it's too early for me to comment. I will tell you, Russia is aligned with Iran right now, which is interesting because in Ezekiel 38 and 39, they provide the weaponry for Persia, which is Iran, to try to attack Israel on the mountains in the Gog of Magog war. And so this is really interesting that now Russia has troops and equipment and planes and bases in Syria connected with Iran, who are the Persians. In Ezekiel 38, the first nation mentioned in that war are Persia. Because the Iranians don't call themselves Iranians, they call themselves Persians. The Iranians is like, if I can simplify, the contemporary name we've given them. Anyway, that's going to be interesting to watch because I'm telling you, this could turn really bad for the United States fast. So it's going to be interesting to see if he tries to take out ISIS bases, if he does what they're claiming. Now, the amazing thing is I have Russian friends here in Cleveland, and in Russia, Putin is very, very popular. And Putin, at least at this point, has given Christians some freedom, but he did invade the Ukraine. And that's a very odd thing. But it's over gas, it's over oil. The Russian economy, with the gas prices dropping, is taking a hit. And war, it's real interesting because when the economy goes crazy, if you'll notice, there's usually a war that happens because war bumps the economy up and brings jobs back. I know it's crazy, but now Russia, watch this, now they're in war. Okay? So that focuses everybody on go Russia, go Putin, go. And I'm not saying they do it for that reason, but I think there have been times in history it's done for that reason. So that issue is really interesting. Now, when the Pope coming to the United States, and people have asked me so many questions about this, but honestly, I was teaching and preaching conferences and also studying for the main event that I didn't even see any of the Pope's speeches. And I know that's rare for me because I keep up with things. So this is a situation where I'm going to go back in retrospect, kind of see what was said, hear what was said. I do know that Drudge reported that that Obama had a homosexual, a transvestite, and all these different types of people at the White House to meet the Pope, to give them their side to try to change his mind. And we have, I sit back and I'm very puzzled, and I think I have enough people who know things who could inform me of things, but there is nobody that I've met, even in the highest level of politics, that can look at me and say, we know what he's doing. We know, there was like 250,000 troops, and he just basically kept 50,000, and the rest of them are gone. He's firing all of our military guys, or asking them to retire early. It's almost like he's trying to destroy the U.S. military. Now, in the Constitution, and this is going to get crazy, it says basically that if the government gets the way it is now, where they're breaking the law, breaking the Constitution, affecting the security of America, our military and our people can raise up and remove them. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I ask some friends, and I'm going to be careful saying this because I do not want to be misunderstood, but I asked some people, I said, he has done things where he could be impeached very easy. And everybody knows this who knows the Constitution. And African-American brothers have told me it would never happen because he's the first black president. We will never, I think Obama knows he will never be touched and never be impeached because we cannot allow that to happen because him being the first African-American president. You can't have that on the record, and they're not going to do it. And I've had guys tell me, we could step in right now and impeach him. He has literally broke laws. But he knows, he kind of laughs at us because he knows, you can't touch me. And they're not going to touch him. So he just has to fulfill the term, and then whoever American people vote for, they vote for. It's kind of one of those issues, But on that line, the other line is, in Israel right now, the blood moons are connected to Israel, and this is a long story made short. And this last blood moon was the only one of the 4 that was seen over Israel. And the rabbis interpret this to mean that there's some kind of day of trouble coming for the Jewish people. It may be from Persia, it may be out of the Syrian conflict or whatever. But on the Jewish New Year this year, before this blood moon came, they had, this is the weather in Israel on that day. They had the worst dust storm in history. You couldn't even, from the Mount of Olives, you couldn't even see the Temple Mount, which is, you've been there, Charlie. It's impossible just about not to see it, no matter what the weather is. They then had a hail the size of ice cubes. They then had the worst flooding in the South they've ever had in history. And then in July, in Persia or Iran, there was a city that recorded 167-degree heat.
Good night.
And the whole thing has gone crazy. And they call it apocalyptic weather. And the reason it was important for the Jewish people is because the reason it's important to the Jewish people is because it happened on a festival day. To the Jewish people, anytime something occurs major on a festival, they review it to see if there's a significance to it. And because of certain prophecies in the Bible about God controlling the weather, and you got locusts, and you got the sun turning dark, moon turning into blood, these verses, they interpret them to line and say, hey, something big is up.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to people, I want to say this, I do preach a lot on the return of the Lord. If you watch the Manifest telecast, or, probably all over YouTube, you see messages. But I do preach on that a lot. But I want to tell people 3 things. Number 1 is there's a lot that can happen now, and God's people do not need to live in fear. They need to live in prayer. They need just to learn how to pray and be at peace with the Lord and with themselves, and go in the peace of God. Number 2, there's nothing wrong, and I'd say this to folks in Cleveland. There's nothing wrong for being prepared. There's a real threat of the power grid going out for a while. There's a real threat of EMPs. There's a threat of earthquakes. I mean, we're not far from that New Madrid fault line. If it went off, we would shake in Cleveland. So there's nothing wrong. I don't believe in hoarding, but there's nothing wrong with being prepared for like a couple weeks, maybe a month delay, 2 months. There's nothing wrong with that if you feel like doing that. Put your food in a safe place, have extra water, whatever. I mean, I just don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think it's a lack of faith. I mean, it's like Joseph. God says, you're going to have 7 years of plenty, you're going to have 7 years of famine. What if Joseph hadn't listened? Everybody would have died.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with that. And the third thing is, because people ask me, they say, when do you think this will all come to an end? Do you have any idea from prophetic projections? And it's to stay out of speculation. I tell people, there's really no one that knows when the Lord's going to return. Nobody. Don't write a book where a guy says he knows because he doesn't. But I would say this, that my theory to people is live as though he could come today, meaning keep your heart right, but plan as though it won't happen in your lifetime. Because a lot of preachers, including my dad, never planned for the end. I mean, you know, in the Church of God or the Assemblies of God or even the Baptist churches, we teach the Lord's coming, the Lord's coming. So sometimes people have a tendency of being passive and saying, well, I'm not going to plan because probably by that time. We don't know God's calendar, and we don't even know who saw this Russian thing coming. And I knew prophetically Russia and Persia had to align. Is this the alignment? Well, I can't say it is the alignment. I can say it looks like the alignment. So that would be my word to people. And the other word I would give them is get to OCI next week, October the 6th through the 10th, Omega Center International on Urbane Road, right behind the Y. There is no registration fee to attend. And I want to brag on somebody. We have a great security team that's the Bradley Police that work with us. We got a great police force in this town, man.
Oh yeah.
I want to brag on our guys, man. We got a great SWAT team in town. We got a great police force. Every meeting we have, we've got security there. Sometimes they're, undercover guys. Other time they're officers. They watch our parking lot for us. They take care of, we've never had an incident, but they take care of anything that would come up, I don't like the idea of just anybody coming in with a gun, because people can pack. Of course, in a public meeting, you're not allowed to carry one because you might hit, people are going to churches now. So in our setting, only police officers who are trained are allowed to pack. So nobody can come in OCI packing. And the thing about that is, if you have a Barney Fife that wants to shoot some idiot, that's coming after you, what if he misses?
Yeah.
Because there's Barney Fifes out there. I call them Secret Service wannabes. You put an earplug in the ear, now they think they're with the Secret Service. I don't mean that bad, but I've been there, okay?
Right.
But I want to brag on our police force and all the guys here in town and tell you guys are great. We support you, and anything they need from us, they're going to get because we appreciate them. And we got two good mayors too, really good mayors, and the guys are doing a great job. Roland's a comedian; he just needs to go on Saturday Night Live and do a skit. Man, he's funny.
For 96 years old, he is doing great, isn't he? He really is.
Wow, Methuselah, he's going to beat Methuselah. Wow,
you are correct about that. Next week, OCI. Starts Tuesday
night.
Through
I'll be
Saturday.
preaching Tuesday night. Yeah.
And what day can they get the fried apple pies?
Come to the Fall Festival. It's on the ranch. What you do is come to OCI, park at the end of the parking lot starting about noon, and walk down. We got sidewalks now. Everything is paved now, and we'll have food vendors out there, and then there'll be a tent with a craft show. I'm giving away a Widesmai in a beautiful 14-karat gold Ichthus fish. It's probably valued about $500 or $600. And first 500 people that register at the White Tent, we're going to do a drawing on Saturday night and give them a ticket. And then I'm going to do a book signing. I'm sorry, yeah, they'll do that Friday. On Saturday, I'll do a book signing for a couple hours. And if you buy one of our books, you come down to the big tent there, and I'm just going to sit there for hours and sign books.
What about that?
What a life.
Pretty incredible. You ever want to get back to funerals for a second, but then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
I want to know who's going to preach the man of God's funeral. Have you ever thought about that?
Dude, that's pretty heavy. I tell you who I think. If I were to plan it out, okay, this is going to sound really weird. I would want Jensen Franklin, one of my old time friends, to come down and say a few things. I will preach it myself.
There you go.
Now I'm going to tell you something. If I knew, let's say I knew that I was going. Now if you go fast, you got to change things, okay?
Right?
But if I knew I was going, and they said, well, Perry, you got a week. First of all, I wouldn't want to look crazy. Fix me up a little bit, puff my skin, or inject me with Botox or something where I don't look bad.
Like Jan Crouch.
Absolutely. Why not? Why not?
He agreed with me.
Why not? Okay. But I would probably preach my own funeral. And, and I would say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this, I'm not here. I'd throw some humor in there. And another thing I think I would do is I would do videos on the funny side of Perry Stone, the husband-wife side of Perry Stone, and the preacher side. And I'd let Charlie and them put together some videos and stuff and make it like a pretty cool, fun thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, but the one thing I did tell my wife, and I have to, I'm a person that I'm very open with people. I don't keep secrets. I do some, but I mean.
That's why we love having you on the show.
We tell it all. We tell it all. But I did tell my wife, this is really, really, I got to tell this story. And I hope nobody misunderstands me when I tell this, because you have to understand the relationship my wife and I have. Because, my wife over the years has been given, and I've got her some jewelry. Now, years ago when she first married me, she wasn't allowed to wear any. You know, they didn't wear any, and they changed the teachings, and that she went crazy.
And you couldn't afford to buy her any back
That's
then
exactly
either.
right. It was all the stuff that turned your finger green. You know, hey honey, what happened to your hand? And it's like you got a green ring. You know, but we were talking one day, and of course she has an insurance policy on me. You know. This is a funny story. Now she will kill me for telling this. If I go
is
home,
great. This is
if
great.
I go home, she will say, why did you? That's so stupid for you to say that." There was a boy that really was in love with her when I went preaching that
Oh,
revival.
this is good stuff right
So
here.
we're sitting in the car one night. He's like, "I need to talk to you." And he sits down. He said, "Do you know the girl, Pam?" I said, "No, she's such and such." And then I realized who she was. "Yeah, I know her. I mean, I know of her." He said, "I really, really love her, but I can't really seem to get her attention. Can you give some advice?" So I'm telling this guy how to really, you know, you got to be romantic. You got to take her out to eat, do this and this. I'm telling her how to win this girl. So then in the second week of the revival, the Lord tells me I'm going to marry her.
Oh, goodness.
I broke up in the revival with the girl I was engaged to 2.5 years in Virginia. And I'm telling you, it just dropped in my spirit. I'd never even been out with her. Okay. So long story made short, I got to know her, called her on the phone. We dated on the phone. I would drop by Alabama and see her, brought her up to the house a couple of times. Fantastic woman. I just said, I can't live without her. Number one, she's gorgeous. She's got that Southern accent, which just melted me every time she talked. So I married her. Okay. Here's the funny story. That dude has still not got married.
Oh, no.
He's 50-some years old. And I'm telling her, maybe he doesn't like the girls. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't like the girls. That's what I told Pam. She said, "Don't say that." Okay. So then I tell her
Where
this.
you going, Charlie?
Charlie's laughing. Hey, so then I tell her this. I say, "Look, here's how it is." And we were doing our estate plan. This is how this comes up. We were just hee-hawing. I said, "There's one stipulation, and I'm going to say it at the funeral if I die on the video. There's a boy from Tuscaloosa, Alabama that's waiting for me to die. If she marries him, she gets no money. I am not going to have some guy coming up and driving my cars, living in my house I work for, swimming in the pool I just built." Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you. Thank you. Isn't that funny? Anyway,
I love you.
I'll end on that story because that's kind of a funny thing. That's a little insight.
Thank you both for coming in. I love you. We'll
Thank
talk
you,
more
buddy.
tomorrow about OCI next week.
Appreciate
And
that.
bring
Appreciate
me some
that.
fried pies.
Gotcha. Hang in there.
I don't
buddy.
want to say this, but I tell everybody, get out of my studio.
I'm gone.
We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
Sing it over one more time. Listen to my story. It's a story about my Jesus.